What is the best way to check up on the contractors that you're talking to? What is the best way to check up on the contractors that you're talking to? Presumably, you've narrowed down your choices and now you're doing your due diligence. What's the best way to look into the contractors you're talking to, and how can you use that information to make an informed decision who's going to be the best partner for you to work with? Asking for references is one of the things that most people know to do right off the bat. But consider that most contractors are going to give you the 2 or 3 references that they know or think are going to give them the best impression of that company. Even a broken clock is right twice a day. When you're trying to differentiate between companies, a company that gives you many more than 2 or 3 references might have a more verifiable track record than one that's only willing to give you 2 or 3. There are a few ways to go dig a little bit deeper than just asking for those couple of references. One way to use references to differentiate between contractors might be to dig a little bit deeper and ask a contractor for repeat client references. Those would be clients where a contractor did a project for them and it turned out very successful, and the clients were so happy that when they had a second project, they called that contractor back and used them again. Not all contractors can produce those types of references. Another thing to consider with references is the source of the reference. Where did it come from? If you're driving down the street and you see a contractor's job sign and you knock on that neighbor's door and ask what their experience is, that reference is probably going to give you a little bit more honest feedback than if you call one of the 3 references that a contractor might have provided to you. Once you get past references, another source that people use to check out contractors are online reviews. Keep in mind when weighing and balancing online reviews that on an online review, you're typically only getting one side of the story. There really is no mechanism for someone to defend themselves from an online review without seeming defensive. Of course, if all the online reviews are fantastic that you're reading, that's one more piece of the puzzle you can use. If you're using online reviews, also consider the source of the online review. Some of these websites like Angie's List or Home Advisor, things like that, they're also trying to sell their advertising services to contractors. So for example, in Angie's List, you will only show up on the top page of their search results if you subscribe to them. You still have to have an A rating to show up in that listing, but for me, who doesn't advertise on Angie's List and doesn't pay Angie's List, I'll never show up on their top level search. Another online source that people use a lot is the Better Business Bureau. The Better Business Bureau puts themselves forward as a consumer advocacy group, but the reality is that if you file a complaint with the Better Business Bureau, what they do is contact the contractor and they say that they have a complaint that they find it's within their jurisdiction to arbitrate, and they try to sell that contractor their arbitration services to bring that complaint to resolution. Another good source of references to look for that might differentiate one contractor from another is using professional references. If you're considering a project that's using a construction loan, you might want to ask your contractor for references for other construction lenders that they've worked with. That construction lender may be able to give you insight onto how they perceive the job went from a financial and time frame standpoint, as well as if their client seemed like they were happy with the end result as well. The next layer of kind of checking up on a contractor you can do is really digging a little bit deeper and checking out their license. The Department of Professional and Occupational Regulation here in Virginia manages all professional licenses, including contractor licenses. There are actually over 40 types of contractor licenses, so you want to make sure that your contractor has the type of license that will suit your project. You can also research how long a company has been licensed with the DPOR. They have a license lookup feature that'll tell you when their initial certification was done. So if you're talking to a company that says they've been in the business for 30 years and you check their license out and they were only licensed for 10 years, that may not be the same as a company that's been licensed for over 30 or 35 years doing business in that location. The DPOR website also gives you the ability to look up official complaints that have been made against a contractor's license. So if you're looking at a company that's been in business for 30 years and has no official complaints with the state versus a company that might have been in business for 10 years and has an official complaint against their license, doesn't mean that that company may not be able to handle your project, but there might be increased risk of using one company versus the other. It's also pretty important to check out insurance. The type of insurance a company carries not only protects them, it also helps reduce risk to you. So dig a little deeper in asking about insurance as well. If you ask a company if they have insurance, they may say, well, sure, I have insurance. I've got insurance on my truck back here. That's going to be very different than a company that carries workers' comp and general liability and all the proper insurances to handle your project. The different types of insurances that companies carry can also affect pricing. That may not be apples to apples. If a company has less than 3 employees, they don't have to carry workers' compensation insurance. But a company that doesn't carry workers' compensation insurance is really shifting that risk back to you, because if something happens to one of the workers on site, they're going to probably come looking at your homeowner's policy to cover that. Anyway, dig a little deeper when you're checking out contractors, and you might find out that you're not comparing apples to apples.